Hey BookTube, welcome back to the History Shelf. My name is Peg, and Happy New Year's Day 2023. It is a new year. There are new things to do, new people to see, new friends to make, new books to read, and as always, there's more history to read. So in a nutshell, this is my video to show a pile of possibilities for the first quarter of Historathon 2023, the exciting new BookTube event that is taking the people by storm. It's taking BookTube by storm. We've got quite a big, healthy group of participating folks on Voxer. I'll try to remember to put some instructions below in the description box if you want to try to join our Voxer group and share pictures and notes about books and history books that you'll be reading. There are further details I'll paste below in the description box about what Historathon is, but essentially for the year 2023 we will be exploring different eras and selecting books from history books written about those eras. Could be biography, could be anything really. Could even be graphic art books, graphic novels. Well, not novels, but I've seen some history done in like animated style. But anything that encourages you to find history fascinating, exciting, adventurous, enlightening, and educational. We just, myself and my other co-hosts, who I will list below, for you to check out their channels. We are all just urging everyone on BookTube to fall in love with history. And this is, if you're new to history and you're kind of wary of it, you're not quite sure if that's the level of reading you want to do, or if it's whatever is holding you back, we're here to rip off those shackles, unfetter you, as it were, and dive into the wonderful world of history. And if you're, you view my channel, obviously you're already in the right place. So, so I have a pile of possibilities here. I think I've already kind of made up my mind about the first quarter, from January through end of March. We are going to be covering prehistory through AD 500. So that's the time frame that I'm looking at here. And I've seen some other of my co-hosts, Vin at Revenant Reads, who is the organizer of this wonderful event. Thank you, Vin, for putting this together. And I've seen a couple of others. We've got, I think Bill Ruttenberg has already posted his, and John David. And by the time I get this, the audio cleaned up and everything, a few more of you might have already made some videos. So, but a full list of the co-hosts of the event down below in the description box and additional information. But again, for the purposes of this video, this is my stack, my pile of possibilities for the first quarter. Now, as you know, I read history year-long anyway, but I'm going to take part in this event, duh. What are we going to start with first? Because, I have so many books. This is the other great thing about Historathon is that, it's encouraging you to take those books off your shelf that have been there for a while and get them read. And so these are definitely books on my shelves that I haven't read yet, and I want to dive in. So let me start with the first book that came out just last year. So I am really excited for this one. This is Weavers, Scribes, and Kings, A New History of the Ancient Near East by Amanda H. Padani. It's a chunkster, though. It's a big read. It's from Oxford University Press. It says here, in the sweeping history of the ancient Near East, Amanda H. Padani takes readers on a gripping journey from the creation of the world's first cities to the conquests of Alexander the Great. The book is built around the life stories of many ancient men and women, from kings, priestesses, and merchants to brickmakers, musicians, and weavers. Their habits of daily life, beliefs, triumphs, and crises, and the changes that people faced over time are explored through their own written words and the buildings, cities, and empires in which they lived. Rather than chronicling 3,000 years of rulers and states, Weavers, Scribes, and Kings instead creates a tapestry of life stories through which readers will come to know specific individuals from many walks of life and to understand their places within the broad history of events and institutions in the ancient Near East. These life stories are preserved on ancient clay tablets, which allow us to trace, for example, the career of a weaver as she advanced to become a supervisor of a workshop. Listen to a king trying to persuade his generals to prepare for a siege, and feel the pain of a starving young couple and their 4 young children as they suffered through a time of famine. What might seem at first glance to be a remote and inaccessible ancient culture proves to be a comprehensible world, one that bequeathed to the modern world many of our institutions and beliefs. A truly fascinating place to visit. So this is a brand new release, like I said, from last year. Can't believe it. I'm already saying last year. So this is definitely towards the top of my... I wanted to read it in December. That was going to be my winter reading and over my break, but I was so sick and I kind of fell behind on a couple of other reading commitments that I had to get done for reviews. So Weavers, Scribes, and Kings is definitely, it's looking pretty good. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, the next book is, let me go just move around here a little bit. This one I find really fascinating, and I wanted to learn more about this. This book is relatively new. It just came out a couple of years ago. And this is Women at War in the Classical World by Paul Crystal. This one is put out by Pen and Sword. Big fan of their line, as you know. It's a casemate book. So, Women at War in the Classical World. I was flipping through this, and I'm like, how come I have not read this already? Because this just looks fantastic. Let's see. Paul Crystal has written the first full-length study of women in warfare in the Greco-Roman world. Although the conduct of war was generally monopolized by men, there were plenty of exceptions, with women directly involved in strategy and tactics, and even participating as commanders and combatants. Artemisia, Olympias, Fulvia, and Agrippina the Elder being famous examples. Both Greeks and Romans encountered redoubtable women among their barbarian enemies, such as Tamiris, Cleopatra, Boudica, and Zenobia. More commonly, though, women were directly involved in and affected by war as non-combatant victims. They were victims of rape, displacement, and enslavement as spoils of war. This makes up an important strand of the author's discussion. The portrayal of female warriors and goddesses in classical mythology and literature and the use of female belligerents to justify gender roles and hierarchies are also considered. Overall, it is a landmark survey of how war in the classical world affected and was affected by women. So, again, an intriguing title. Not as big as the other one, so it's definitely, I'm guessing that I'm going to try to, I'm really going to oversell myself here. For the first quarter, I would like to read 3, but it's more likely that I'll finish 2. So I'll probably make a separate video with my final, I'll make a separate video later this week with my final selections, but I wanted you guys to see these, and I might be swayed by one or two of your comments in the comment field. So let's see here. Yeah, I guess mine, there's kind of a theme. Well, I'm really into the Greek and Roman world. What can I say? So here's another book. This was also by Pen and Sword Military. This is Themistocles, The Power Broker of Athens by Jeffrey A. Smith. I've got a little soft spot in my heart for Themistocles. He's the mastermind of Salamis. Mr. Trickeration over there. Yeah, I haven't read like a full-on biography of Themistocles. I've read books, that include him in the narrative of other things going on. But I wanted to I was intrigued by this book and taking a deeper dive into Themistocles. So what does it say here? It says, this is an exciting new biography of Themistocles of Athens, architect of the Greek victory over the Persian invasions of 490 BCE and 480 to 479 BCE. Or as I like to say, AD. Sorry, BC. Not with no E on the end. Anyway. While his role in the Persian Wars is naturally a major theme, Themistocles' career before and after those conflicts is also considered in detail. Themistocles was a leading exponent of a new kind of populist politics in the young democracy of Athens, manipulating the practice of ostracism, exile, to get rid of his political rivals. Jeffrey Smith explains Themistocles' rise to a position of virtual hegemony, which allowed him to institute his far-sighted policy of preparation against the growing Persian threat. In particular, he strengthened Athens' fleet and thereby secured the support of the poor Thetes, who found employment as rowers. During the first invasion, Themistocles fought and possibly held joint command at the decisive Battle of Marathon. When the Persians struck again in 480, he commanded the fleet at Artemisium and Salamis. The latter battle he won by subterfuge and secured Athens' liberation and survival. Ironically, he was himself eventually ostracized by his fellow citizens and ultimately entered Persian service, ending his days as governor of Magnesia in Asia Minor. So, yeah, he led quite the life. I just, it's a time period, ancient history. I just love the Greek and Roman stuff. And that's going to come through here in a way. So here's another possibility for the first quarter of Historathon 2023, covering prehistory to 8500. And of course, you know me with my interest in military stuff. This comes natural to me. The next one I'm considering is Hannibal, Rome's Greatest Enemy, by Philip Freeman. It's a small little volume. It's put out by Pegasus Books. This came out a couple years ago, I think. Very slim volume, so maybe a fast read. Actually, this came out in about a year ago. Okay. Over 2,000 years ago, one of the greatest military leaders in history almost destroyed Rome. Hannibal, a daring African general from the city of Carthage, led an army of warriors and battle elephants over the snowy Alps to invade the very heart of Rome's growing empire. But what kind of person would dare to face the most relentless imperial power of the ancient world? How could Hannibal, consistently outnumbered and always deep in enemy territory, win battle after battle until he held the very fate of Rome within his grasp? Hannibal appeals to many as the ultimate underdog, a Carthaginian David against the Goliath of Rome. But it wasn't just his genius on the battlefield that set him apart. As a boy and then a man, his self-discipline and determination were legendary. As a military leader, like Alexander the Great before him and Julius Caesar after, he understood the hearts of men and had an uncanny ability to read the unseen weaknesses of his enemy. As a commander in war, Hannibal has few equals in history and has long been held as a model of strategic and tactical genius. But Hannibal was much more than just a great general. He was a practiced statesman, a skilled diplomat, and a man deeply devoted to his family and country. Roman historians, on whom we rely for almost all of our information on Hannibal, portray him as a cruel barbarian. But how does the story change if we look at Hannibal from the Carthaginian point of view? Can we search beneath the accounts of Roman writers who were eager to portray Hannibal as a monster and find a more human figure? Can we use the life of Hannibal to look at the Romans themselves in an unfamiliar way, not as the noble and benign defenders of civilization, but as ruthless conquerors, motivated by greed and conquest? So all of that in this slim little volume. I'm intrigued, and this could be a real quick read for me. But again, I haven't made my final decisions yet. All right, another strong contender. This one kind of ranges over a little bit of a period of time. I'm not sure if it fits into the criteria. I thought it did, but as I'm looking at some of the later chapter headers, this might be outside the realm. Anyway. I really was interested in reading War Before Civilization, The Myth of the Peaceful Savage by Lawrence H. Keeley. Little book put out by Oxford Press back in the day. It's been out for a little while now. Actually, let's see, when was this written? 1996. For the last 50 years, most popular and scholarly works have agreed that prehistoric warfare was rare, harmless, and unimportant. Lawrence Keeley's groundbreaking War Before Civilization offers a devastating rebuttal to such comfortable myths and debunks the notion that warfare was introduced to primitive societies through contact with civilization. building on much fascinating archaeological and historical research and offering an astute comparison of warfare in civilized and prehistoric societies. See, that's where I was thinking this would fit in. Okay, but then it moves on from modern European states to the Plains Indians of North America. Keeley convincingly demonstrates that prehistoric warfare was in fact more deadly, more frequent, and more ruthless than modern war. He cites evidence of ancient massacres in many areas of the world, and surveys the prevalence of looting, destruction, and trophy-taking in all kinds of warfare, again finding little moral distinction between ancient warriors and civilized armies. Finally, and perhaps most controversially, he examines the evidence of cannibalism among some pre-literate peoples. But Keeley goes beyond the grisly facts to address the larger moral and philosophical issues raised by his work. What are the causes of war? Are human beings inherently violent? How can we ensure peace in our own time? Challenging some of our most dearly held beliefs, Keeley's conclusions are bound to stir controversy. And that just sounds like fun reading for me. I think this would fall into the purview. I mean, it would take prehistoric people and compare them to what they call civilized or civilizational warfare. I'll ask in the Voxer group and see if I decide on this one, if it's cool or not, But the whole point is that he's talking about, prehistoric people. It's war before civilization, baby. It's got to fit. Anyway, this one is very intriguing to me. I've had it on my shelf for a while. I keep meaning to read it. There's another book. I want to read this one first. There's another book I have on my shelf behind me over in the corner. I think it's called Constant Battles. It's along the same line, and it's just a history of warfare. And I think it also supports this line of thought that pre-civilizational societies were not passing the peace pipe around, and eating mushrooms and just, having a hippie lifestyle. I'm paraphrasing and I'm being irreverent, but it basically says, let's not, again, the myth of the peaceful savage, or this, to me it's like, he asked the question is, are human beings inherently violent? I think in general, yes, and in particular, no. Like, on an individual level, people are not violent. But the race of humanity, definitely, the history, our track record, we're inherently violent. Come on. It's there. Anyway, sorry. It's a little discursion on that, but I'm interested. I find it an intriguing premise. Okay, and then the last book, I remember I picked this up in a book haul. Oh, probably I've had this on my shelf for a little while now. This book came out in 2015. And except for one chapter, which I think it goes outside the 500 AD time period. But it's interesting. I don't know. It's a little hardcover book called Classical Civilization, Greeks and Romans in 10 Chapters by Nigel Spivey. I think I picked this up at Hamilton Book. It's the head of Zeus Publishing. And it covers all these different cities in time and discusses them. Well, let me go ahead and just read this to you. Nigel Spivey explores the foundations and enduring legacy of ancient Greece and Rome via 9 real cities of the classical world and 1 imaginary one. His journey begins in the underwhelming ruin of Troy, where history, myth, and archaeology fuse to form the origins of classical civilization, and ends in the magnificent city of Constantinople on the Bosphorus, scene of antiquity's long twilight. In between, he visits the Greek city-states of Athens and Sparta, travels west to Syracuse and Sicily to trace the diffusion of classical ideals across the Mediterranean, then east in the footsteps of Alexander to Alexandria in Egypt and the Hellenistic city of Pergamon, and at last to Rome, a hilltop village turned global empire, whose power and reach can be discerned to this day in the magnificent remains of Ephesus in Asia Minor, In Utopia, he examines the Greek and Roman achievement in philosophy and science. A secure grasp of our Greco-Roman heritage is fundamental to a true understanding of Western society and culture. And Nigel Spivey outlines and explains that heritage with passion, rigor, and clarity. So, yes, I thought this might be a possibility. You know, if I had taken longer and was browsing through my my stacks, I would have brought way more to the table. But I know I'm only going to really choose 2 to 3. And it might be just 2 if I'm picking a big, thick book. Anyway, so what do you guys think of my pile of possibilities? What would you read? I'm not saying I would read what you would read, but you never know. I'd like to. I'm interested to see what appeals to everybody. But you know, it kind of covers a little bit. I wish I had picked something. I might add one more to the pile if I can find more Eastern, like China or Japan prehistory, something like that. I might add that to the pile. Of course, I have all my Folio Society books behind me. I could easily pick one of those as well. I've got the Babylonians. I've got the Hittites, the Phoenicians. I mean, gosh, I could have put that in the running too. Dang, I might. So that is my pile of possibilities for Historathon 2023. I will make a follow-up video later this week with my chosen selections. And yeah, and then we'll just get going. And in the meantime, I want to hear all about what you're reading, what you've chosen to read, because I always get good ideas from you guys. I always get more book recommendations. Don't tell Martine, okay? She keeps telling me, you said you were going to curate your library. Yeah, so I need to do that in 2023. Okay, guys. I need to head out and get some food before the next snowstorm rolls through. So until then, everyone out there, be safe, be well. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.